Welcome to Vedic Wisdom Insightss. Glory to my Guru Swami Mukundananda for showering his blessings on me and everybody. Welcome to our ongoing Isopanisad series. So far, we had completed 10 mantras, and by God's grace, I am sure everybody is getting benefited from it. I am pretty sure those watching this series, they have started to implement the knowledge and wisdom. And by God's grace, I have seen from my channel analysis that more and more people are watching to the series to get this pure knowledge and transform their life. I owe all this credit and results to my Guru Swami Mukundananda, Shri Ram, ShreeKrishna and my Kuldevi, Shri Mahalsa Narayani. I am also thankful to Sona's Creative Hub for creating these wonderful videos with amazing animation and soothing music. Without their team support, we would not have been able to watch these videos. I think all this is happening due to God's blessings. Now let's start with today's episode and let's do a quick recap of last episode where we discussed about how we can acquire right knowledge, what are its methods, and how other methods develop the wrong knowledge. This is the verse 11 from Isopanisad. Vidyam cha yas tad vedo bhayam saha avidyaya mrityum tritva vidya yam tramtam asnute. Translation: only one who can learn the process of science and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Since the creation of the material world, everyone has been trying to attain a permanent life. But the laws of nature are so cruel that no one has been able to avoid the hand of death. No one wants to die, nor does anyone want to become old or get afflicted by disease. Material science can discover the nuclear bomb to accelerate the process of death, but it cannot discover anything that can protect man from the cruel hands of old age, disease and death. Let's go to Puranas to learn the lesson from Hiranyakashipu, the father of Prahlad Maharaj. He wanted to conquer the death by his material acquisitions and the strength of his science. He underwent a type of rigorous meditation that the inhabitants of all the planetary systems became disturbed by his mystic powers. He forced the creator of the universe, the Brahma, to come down to him. He then asked Brahma for the benediction of becoming Amar, by which one does not die. Brahma said that he could not award the benediction because even he, the material creator who rules all planets, is not Amar. In the Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, 17 verse, it says, Brahma lives for a very long time, but that does not mean he is immortal. But what was the reason by Hiranyakashipu to ask such a boon? Hiranya means gold and Kashipu means soft bed. He was only interested in these two things, money and women, and he wanted to enjoy them by becoming immortal. He asked from Brahma many benedictions in hopes of indirectly fulfilling his desire to become immortal. Since Brahma told him that he could not grant the gift of immortality, Hiranyakashipu requested that he should not be killed by any man, animal, god or any other living being within 8.4 million species. He also asked that he should not die on land, in the air or water or by any weapon. In this way, Hiranyakashipu foolishly thought that this guarantees would save him from death. However, ultimately, Brahma granted him all these benedictions. Still, he was killed by the personality of Godhead in the form of Narsim Bhagwan, the Lord's half lion, half man incarnation. And no weapon was used to kill him. He was killed by the Lord's nails. Nor was he killed on the land, in the air or in the water. For he was killed on the lap of that wonderful living being, Narsima, who was beyond his conception. See, Hiranyakashipu, despite being a king, having so much opulence and living a lavish life, could not beat the death. Then how can we surpass this eternal truth? Therefore, Sri Isopanisad is instructing us not to make one-sided attempts to win the struggle for existence. In order to attain a permanent life, one must be prepared to go back to Godhead. But the question comes, how can we go back to Golok and meet our ShreeKrishna? Is there any process to it? Yes, definitely. And fortunately, we have got the access as well. The path is extremely difficult, but it is not impossible. The process is mentioned in our scriptures such as Bhagavad Gita, Ramcharitra-manas, Srimad Bhagavatam, Upanishad and Vedanta Sutra. To become happy in this life and attain a permanent blissful life after leaving this material body, one must study this sacred literature and obtain transcendental knowledge. We, the conditioned souls, have forgotten the eternal relationship with God and has accepted this material world as permanent, and therefore we are taking repeated birth and death, leading to misery and unhappiness. The Lord has kindly delivered the above mentioned scriptures to remind the forgetful human being that his home is not here in this material world. The living being is a spiritual entity, and he can be happy only by returning to his spiritual home. From his kingdom, the personality of Godhead sends his bona fide servants to propagate this message by which one can return to Godhead, and sometimes the Lord comes himself to do this work. Since all living beings are his parts and parcels, his beloved sons, God is more sorry than we ourselves to see the sufferings we are constantly undergoing in this material condition. The miseries of this material world serve to indirectly remind us of our incompatibility with dead matter. Intelligent living entities generally take note of these reminders and engage themselves in the culture of Vidya, which is also called as transcendental knowledge. Human life is the best opportunity for the culture of spiritual knowledge, and a human being who does not take advantage of this opportunity is called Naradham, the lowest of human beings. The path of avidya or sense gratification is a path of repeated birth and death. As he exists spiritually, the living entity has no birth or death. Birth and death apply to the outward covering of the spirit soul, the body. Death is compared to the taking off, and birth to the putting on of outward garments. Foolish human beings who are grossly absorbed in the culture of avidya do not mind this cruel process. They are enamored with the beauty of illusory energy, and they undergo the same miseries repeatedly and do not learn any lessons from the laws of nature. Therefore, the culture of Vidya or transcendental knowledge is essential for the human being. Sense enjoyment in the diseased material condition must be restricted as far as possible. Unrestricted sense enjoyment in this bodily condition is a path of ignorance and death. The living entities are not without spiritual senses. Every living being in his original spiritual form has all the senses, which are now materially manifested, being covered by the material body and mind. The activities of the material senses are perverted reflections of the activities of the original spiritual senses. In his diseased condition, the spirit soul engages in material activities under the material covering. Real sense enjoyment is possible only when the disease of materialism is removed. In our pure spiritual form, free from all material contamination, real enjoyment of the senses is possible. Sri Isopanisad herein warns that we must not follow this dangerous path leading to death. On the contrary, we must develop the culture of spiritual knowledge so that we may become completely free from the cruel hands of death. Misguided men think that religion should be maintained because it contributes to economic development, which is required for sense gratification. Thus, in order to guarantee further sense gratification after death in heaven, there is some system of religious observance. But that is not the purpose of religion. The path of religion is actually meant for self-realization, and economic development is only required to maintain the body in a sound, healthy condition. A man should lead a healthy life with a sound mind just to realize Vidya, true knowledge, which is the aim of human life. This life is not meant for working like an ass or for culturing avidya for sense gratification. The path of Vidya is most perfectly presented in Srimad Bhagavatam, which directs a human being to utilize his life to inquire into the absolute truth. The absolute truth is realized step by step as Brahman, Paramatma, and finally Bhagwan, the personality of Godhead. The absolute truth is realized by the broad-minded man who has attained knowledge and detachment by following the 20 principles of the Bhagavad Gita, which we described in the last episode of verse 10. The central purpose of these 20 principles is the attainment of transcendental devotional service to the personality of Godhead. Therefore, all classes of men are encouraged to learn the art of devotional service to the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam describes the culture of Vidya beautifully in Canto 1, Chapter 2, 14th verse. Tasma dekena manasa bhagvana satvatam pati shrotavaya kirti tavya shacha dheya pujya shacha nityada. It means, therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees.